Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Paper Fold. I'm your host, Sarah, and I am so glad to be back here in the fold with my guests today. They're none other than Alice and Doris Lieu of ilootpaperie. If you are not familiar with their stationery range, that is by turns very salty and very sweet, but always packed with puns, you have to change that immediately. These dynamic and talented sisters live and run their stationery business together in Pasadena, California, with support from their dog mascot, Sparky. And for that reason, I can't think of anyone better to pen a gift book on sisters. The book, called Sisters, Better Together, will be published by Workman on July 20th. And if you're envisioning a saccharine, superficial take on the subject, this is not the book for you. Rather, despite being so engaging to look at and silly at times, it really does take you on a fun journey that makes you examine the idea of sisters and sisterhood a bit closer. I went into this interview thinking I knew these sisters and the topic quite well, but I learned a few things about both in the process. Hopefully you will too, and they'll be right here with me right after this. Hey, paper peeps. So by now, many of my listeners are familiar with the force of stationary nature, better known as Girl with Knife. But if you aren't, time to change all that. From the first moment I spied her booth at her New York Now trade show debut in 2019, I was smitten with this cutting edge range that the world was calling out for. We all just didn't know it yet. Everything is nimbly collaged to life, slice by careful slice by the talented and exquisite Alicia Castaldi. This stylish collection of cards, journals, and notepads that have sprung to life under this fashionista's exacting knife is sharp, snarky, sleek, and occasionally very sweet, just like that BFF who would love to hear from you right now. For that reason, whenever I get my hands on Girl with Knife merchandise, I hoard it and use it most sparingly. Alicia recently launched Gift Wrap, and if you're already a fan of her range, you're familiar with her patterns and quality, but these super thick sheets elevate any gift from off the rack to atelier. Her recent releases of Midnight Botanical, Rare Creatures, and Chasing Dreams bring the total styles that slay up to 10. And if you're like me and that you fall in love with a range and want to reside in that world, you're in luck. Alicia recently unveiled Knife House, which was one of the few good things I can think of that came out of 2020. That was when Alicia shifted her operation from LA to this newly renovated concept home in Palm Springs. This completely private, walled and gated estate features panoramic mountain views and countless luxe surprises. Take a tour through its magnificent blush pink doors at www.knifehousepalmsprings.com or find it on Instagram at Knife House Palm Springs. Good luck getting your jaw off the floor as you take in this perfect California adult playground. These glamorous digs are available for photo shoots, film projects, special events, and short-term rentals. But just as importantly, all that exquisite Palm Springs flora and fauna have inspired Alicia's soon-to-be-released journal and notepads. She tells me that they're also expanding into home decor, which I, for one, absolutely can't wait to see. So now that you've glimpsed this wonderful world, you need this cutting-edge lifestyle brand in your life. Find Girl with Knife in hundreds of shops across the U.S. and over half a dozen countries. Alicia and Girl with Knife have also been featured in New York Magazine, LA Business Journal, BuzzFeed, and of course, Stationery Trends. I've run her work there countless times. Alicia was one of our 10 designers to watch in 2020 and proceeded to live up to that designation when last May, 2 out of her 3 nominated cards took CHAP honors at the Noted and Noted virtual greeting card competition. Then, for our winter 2021 issue of Stationery Trends, Alicia designed the 10 designers to watch frontispiece for us. It is something else if you haven't seen it yet. Also, As of 2021, Alicia is represented by none other than the Daniel Richards showrooms in Atlanta and Dallas. Dan's eye is renowned in this biz, so his representing Girl with Knife is unsurprising, but it also means that this brand needs to be on your design radar stat. Check out this beguiling range at the recently refreshed girlwithknife.com. Right now, the theme is Season of Fierce, and I think we can all use one of those about now. I guarantee your stationery will slay. All right, everyone. I have Alice and Doris of ilootpaperie in the paper fold. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
I'm only used to hearing one voice. It's so cute. I love it. So I want to go back to start off. Can you take me back to when ilootpaperie was being born? What was the original impetus for it to even come to life?
So I can start on that. We actually got our start doing some friends' wedding invitations, and so we did maybe about 4 or so.
Very informally.
Yeah.
Like we weren't paid, but we just wanted to kind of dabble into like sourcing the paper and working with printers. So
yeah. And then we quickly realized that I think we preferred, because we did thank you cards for their presents, we quickly realized that we actually preferred creating our own collection versus doing custom client work.
Their work. I mean, I feel like a lot of people get into stationery through wedding invitations. I'm starting to kind of suspect that a lot of them like fell in love with a really expensive invitation and decided to make it themselves. And that's how it begins. And then
we didn't actually even know how people priced it out, because we literally had our friends cover like the cost of the materials, and we're like, wow, it's already so expensive.
Right.
And like, how do people, and obviously it's, it's a service, so that's how you end up adding your service charges on that. But we realized the part that was the most fun for us was the greeting card that we designed, which, it just kind of was inspired by the suite. And so we're like, let's do greeting cards instead.
And then if people related to it, then they could just, buy it. So we felt like that's basically how iLoot got started.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you must have put like some kind of creature or animal or insect of some sort on that first thank you, right? Was there a pun? Was there a word pun?
No, actually there wasn't.
So each suite was actually like inspired by what the couple had asked for. So the suites were all very different. Like there was one that was very traditional Chinese and had the double happiness. I remember. And then there was one that we drew kind of caricatures of our friend, like my girlfriend that was getting married and her husband. So they were all quite different, but and we love puns aside from making them onto cards. And I think that's how it slowly crept into everything. Yeah. We're huge fans of like wordplay, metaphors. So I think that just slowly seeped into it.
When I think of ilootpaperie, that's, what I think of, clever, smart, funny, cute, warm. Yeah. Sometimes it kind of takes you a second to get it, which I really enjoy. I personally really enjoy that, because I think the best things in life, like, they're an experience over time,
Right.
So,
and we like to do like double puns, because I think a lot of people do puns, but if you can do either double or, triple puns, like it's a challenge for our brains. And then we think it's like, we're always excited.
I call it the Scrabble factor, because if you play Doris in Scrabble, her and her friends play, I think it was called Literati on the computer.
Yahoo.
So they would play, and she'd sit there and all quiet, and she like is very stubborn and doesn't put certain letters in. And then all of a sudden, she'll put down like one letter and it'll connect 2 words. And it's like not even really long words, but they'll cover the right pieces on the thing. And bam.
You gotta like do the triple scores, you know, and like
the game is over.
I mean, that is the cool thing about Scrabble is different ways of looking at
yeah, exactly.
the, you know, what's in front of you. And the longer you look, the more the more you see. And it's cool to get your mind into that mindset. And then to see it all come to life in a stationary range. Hey, Paper Peeps. So Kitty Meow Boutique has been a fabulous client of mine for a while now. So hopefully many of my listeners are familiar with not just the dazzling wares from this Chicagoland house of paper, but also its amazing founder, a force of nature better known as Catherine Hildner. This mom of 2, with another scheduled to arrive soon, has created a most intoxicating stationery range. I define the Kitty Meow aesthetic as polished and very smart. Think of the sharpest outfit you own that you feel like $1 million in, but in stationery form. Everything from typography to envelope choice comes together to pack a most enticing punch. But this range is not just about the surface. It's about honoring those connections with those we care about most. And you'll see once you visit kittymeowboutique.com that the wares are divided into witty and sweet because, as Catherine puts it, sometimes you feel a little saucy and sometimes you don't. But Kitty Meow Boutique is so much more than just another pretty face in the marketplace. The empowering messaging found on her cards, invitations, journals, coasters, art prints, and enamel pins elevates the range into something that makes you feel not just seen, but good about yourself too. Everything is essentially a little lift, visually and emotionally, for not just those you love, but you as well. Not only is Kitty Meow available for your personal shopping needs, it's also available wholesale to all those shops looking for something new with which to excite their customers. She's on Fair. Visit kittymeowboutique.fair.com and get your shop started. Finally, I think what I love about Catherine most is that she is really all about living your best life, as you'll see for yourself beneath the education tab on her site. She offers KMB Signature Collective, a mastermind for women in the product-based business world who have a love for paper and giftable items, who have an idea and a plan, but need guidance and support to be successful in their efforts. I so agree with Catherine. It's so important to be surrounded by like-minded women and leaders who are willing to put in the work to lift each other up. For that reason, it's not a course. It's a friggin' transformation, people. And Catherine has also started my second favorite podcast, Dreams to Plans, with another brilliant force of nature, my girlfriend Renee, to elevate your daydreams to actual, tangible plans. Oh, and if you're on Clubhouse, follow Kitty Meow so you can tune in to her weekly room Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Small Business Savvy, Insider Secrets You Need to Know. I checked it out for myself last week, and it was just the dose of inspiration and confidence my day needed. So get those good vibes going at kittymeowboutique.com and tell them Sarah sent you. So at some point you decided to morph, informal wedding invitations to, more of a, a brand. And so I want to hear about that decision-making process and also about the name ilootpaperie.
So the name ilootpaperie actually came about because when we were doing the wedding invitations, sorry, our phone.
No, it's okay.
But when we were doing the wedding invitations, we were actually going under the name of In Lieu of Ordinary Things. We hadn't like filed a DBA for it or anything like that, but that actually came about because Alice wanted to incorporate our surname into
So our last name
our
is
company.
Lieu, yes.
And our dad's super nerdy. So when he immigrated over for grad school with my mom, he looked it up in the dictionary and he's like, oh, Lieu, this is how you spell it, in lieu of, right? And so because we're both girls, the assumption would be if we got married, we would take our husband's last name. So unless they coincidentally had the same last name, Lieu, it wouldn't get passed on. So I always thought, oh, we should do something with the last name. That way we could carry it and forward.
Nice.
So for the longest time we did In Lieu of Ordinary Things, but it's a very long name. And I think we were aware of it, but then one of our friends pointed it out. One of the girlfriends that we did the wedding suites for, she's like, it's a very long business name. So then we played around with it and we realized, oh, if you take just the letters, it spells I loot. And so we're like, oh, kind of like a little French bandit. And then, I mean, Doris was really, I don't know. I think because
I think because a lot of people were using, oh, yes.
Like, that's what I was looking for when we were talking. I brought out your trading card, like your original bandit from, that was your first, was that your first?
Yeah.
And it was at your very first trade show as well.
Yes, it was.
Wow.
It's such fond memories. I think you were literally introducing those cards at the presentation, and we were still putting cards up on the wall. We're like, people are going to come over.
And then our friend Desiree from I Must Draw came over and was like,
girls, get those cards up on the fucking wall.
She's hysterical. There's someone else.
Accent, but yeah.
I know. She has really funny puns.
She's so funny. I miss seeing her so much at the show.
I know. She has that card of the dinosaur that looks like LeBron making a hoop that says LeBronosaurus.
I love her work so much.
Stuff is
she's
funny.
super fun.
Her stuff is so funny. So that's where I loot came from. I think it's great. I do like In Lieu of. I like it, but it almost sounds like the first line of a poem or something. It's like so poetic. But it would be hard to fit on a website, a logo, a business card, the back of a card.
But ironically, ilootpaperie is still pretty long, which we realized when we first bought we have this set of gold letters. That was like our first big purchase for the company. It was like $300 because you had to buy each letter. Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh man, why didn't we think of
each letter was name? Like $26. So we're like, holy shit, why is our name so long? But then we've used it. I mean, literally.
We've gotten our use out of it.
You've gotten your use out of it.
Yeah.
I know.
I had 10 years.
I had a little bit of that when I named my child Veronica, and then when she was in nursery school, and they kindergarten, and they write out their name, and then they practice and there's Lily, and all these little names, and I'm like, I had to give my kid the 7-letter name.
I always told Doris if I had a little girl, I would name her Ada, and I was like, she's going to be so happy in kindergarten because it's going to be A-D-A. And then she'll be done.
It's going to be odd. It will. Or an Ava or a name like that. Plus, those names are palindromes. I would think that's right up your alley.
Yes.
We love it.
When you first started ilootpaperie and started showing, I mean, Doris, you're still at your day job to this day.
I am still at my day job.
So all of that was flying in New York. Everything was scheduled around that, and now you have a full-time job and a brand as well. I had no idea. That is just makes me even more impressed.
So she's full-time. Yeah.
So Alice, you're full-time at iLoot. That is your everything.
Because I got laid off. And the decision was made for me. And I did job hunt at the time, and I wanted to switch into, I don't know if it was entertainment, but something different, and that's when I discovered the concept of transferable skills is just theory, because it's hard unless you know someone in the new industry. They want people either that are graduated with skill sets they think they can apply directly, or if you're from the industry already. So at the time, it was really difficult for me to be like middle of the career or whatever and try to jump into a different industry. And then Doris had felt like, I think I got laid off in 2013, right before my birthday. Right in time for my birthday. But it's okay. We're all worked out because I don't think I felt like we're such conservative entrepreneurs. I don't know that we would have ever been able to be like, oh, let's make that decision ourselves and quit a job and then do this full time. And at the time we had friends that were like a couple of friends that own their own business, like Floridica, they did floors. But we talked with them and they were like, there's this idea that if your business is doing well, it'll blow up and then you could quit your day job. But I don't know that it happens that often. I mean, I think the idea is that if you don't take your full-time attention and put it on something, it's not generally going to grow into a full-time thing. So that was kind of thing that we were thinking about. So Doris was like, well, why don't you try that? I mean, I was still applying for jobs because my parents are very old school. So my dad's dream is to have us work for the government because he's like, the government will always be there.
Oh, my parents would be like, how many resumes have you sent out? Like, what are you doing? Like, who are you talking to? Like, you better be doing something, not drawing cards.
I mean, this creative career path was probably very concerning for them because I did well in school. And I'm pretty sure they thought they had a doctor in the bag. But I was like the train that derailed. And I couldn't really answer to it. I couldn't be like, I want to do this. And this is like the steps for it, So it was, I mean, it's been a long, windy road. But.
Yeah. But it is where you feel like this is where you're meant to be.
I mean, we love what we do. I mean, it's not easy and it feels stressful a lot, but
we feel fortunate.
We feel very blessed because I didn't even get to go to art school, So all of this is, I mean, we feel very lucky.
Right. And I feel also it's a fallacy that when people are like, oh, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Like that's
not true at
such
all.
nonsense. Like, please spend 10 minutes with me. I mean, and I love what I do, but it doesn't mean I don't drop the occasional F-bomb. One of the many things for me that makes stationery like so cool and so different, just as a longtime observer, is just like the huge amount of family operations in our biz. I mean, it's always I get such a kick out of visiting booths where you meet mothers and daughters, mothers and sons, husbands and wives. And my other favorite, which you only see very, very occasionally, is like the multi-generation operation where there'll be like grandparents, aunts, neighbors, and they're all selling, paper napkins or whatever. So there's just no experience to parallel like a 9-year-old child handing you a press kit. So from the start, you guys were a sister act, and over the years, I'm curious, and I want each of you to answer this separately, Alice and Doris. Have you sort of gotten to know each other on different levels, having this enterprise?
Yeah, I can start. So 100%. Even, I mean, as the years go by, we continue to learn a lot about each other. I think because when you're sisters and if you're not running a business, you're not working with each other necessarily, right? So we had our separate daytime jobs. And so we did that for 5 years into running this business. But I think in the last 5-6 years, when we started going to trade shows and like all that stuff, doing the book, you just learn so much about each other. We're completely different personalities. Like I am a more big picture person, whereas Alice is much more detail orientated. And then in terms of our communication styles, we're complete opposites. So trying to work when you have such different styles, you really have to work at it. And I think we have a good foundation, but it doesn't mean that every day you're kind of like, wait, you actually, what you said that, and like, oh, this is what you meant. Oh, I totally missed that, like, so you
can have the same conversation and come to different conclusions in your own head.
Yeah.
You think that you agreed on something, but you're like, wait, but then we talked about this. And also you add on like Doris's daytime job, which is, there's a lot going on. And then you add on life. I mean, we are probably unusual. We work together and we live together. So there's lots of things like, I mean, now we live together. I'm divorced now, so we moved back in because we operate out of a home studio, and it just makes much more sense. Cool. And everyone wants to live with Sparky anyways.
I mean, it is, in a way, it is like a marriage. I mean, when Doris, when you were saying, we might, or I'm sorry, Alice, you said we take different things from a conversation. Like, what marriage is not like that? Like, I find myself saying to my husband a lot, well, how I thought we left it was, because so often, like, the other person has like a totally different interpretation. And so, but I mean, it's just so cool that you guys can bounce off each other.
Oh yeah. So I think creatively, when you're brainstorming, we have a huge, like, overlapping amount of like
references
and inference. Yeah, because we've like been together all our lives. So I think in that way, it's different because you're sisters. But I was, when we were like prepping for this and we were talking about the question, I was like, for sure, if you run a business, you're going to keep learning things about each other, because a business requires so many different things other than even just being sisters. Because we vacation very well together, like, because we like very many similar things. It just happens to be we have a huge overlap of interests and random things that are interesting to me. Like, I'll be like, look at that rock. Like, she'll also happen to find it interesting too. And I think we were fortunate in that way, that there's a huge overlap of things that are intriguing to us both. But
that's great. And you guys are so lucky. I'm going to get to your book in a second, but I have to say, I went and looked at the galleys again this morning. I reviewed them, and it's so funny. I started thinking about my sister, who, I don't see nearly as much. We used to be really close growing up. I mean, I adore her. I adore her kids. We just don't see each other, especially in the past year, everything that's happened. Like, I haven't seen her in months, and I was like reading it, and it was kind of making me remember like all the things we shared, when we were little. And then I was like, they're so lucky they still have that, because I was starting to miss it about my sister, and like stuff I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, it was funny because when we were writing it, our editor would have to remind us, hey, not all sisters live together and like are able to,
or like, because we'd be like, I'm like, Doris will save me the last piece of the food, like, because we share food too, like meals and things like that. But I think from in the beginning, that was probably one of the things. She's like, just keep in mind, not everyone lives together, not everyone's in the same. So going forward, because I think that was in the proposal state of the book. Like, once that was in our head, then we were mindful that, there are different types of relationships out there, and we want it to feel inclusive.
Right. But you do say that right up front. And so you can so no one is left out, because you say, types of sisters, biological, soul. I mean, who doesn't have a soul sister, even if you don't have a real, even if you don't have a real one. So, I mean, I love that approach. And I love that. I love just the whole idea of it. Like, it really made me, looking through the book, I mean, on one level, it's a gift book, yes, but on another level, it really made me think, like, what is a sister? What do they mean? Like, what, and that I'm just like crazy for all the cultural references. It's just a really fabulous trip to the world. I mean, you have famous sister bands, famous sister rivalries, pioneering sisters quotes, Mad Libs. And I think what's my favorite thing is that there's just like every type of sister out there: old, white, black, Asian American, American Indian. You don't neglect any ethnicity.
Well, I don't know if we covered it all, but I think I think growing up in Southern California, we've always been exposed to a lot of diverse influences. And it's interesting because this last month was AAPI, and we've taken part in a couple different panels. And I think for us, that was always part of our identity, but in somewhat of a very seamless way. So we weren't actually, we were very proud to be Chinese. We went to Chinese school, but that was very like something we didn't question. It was just part of who we were. And so I think it's just kind of a natural approach to the way like we do things when we design, or like even when we were doing the book. And also because our publisher and our editor, like they definitely, our editor, Rachel, was really great at having, she would just ask these questions, like, what about this? And it's interesting because when you're researching for the book, you like think you've explored every last nook, and then she'll ask a question and you go, okay, let me look again. And then you're like, oh, wow, I found this again. Yeah. And so it was interesting because you were able to keep adding layers and layers and layers. And I think that's how it ended up being in the form that it is, which we hopefully feel like someone can pick it up and come from different backgrounds and see a little bit of something of themselves reflected back to themselves. So
yeah, and look back. I mean, it's hard not to read it without being a little nostalgic, as well as like looking forward.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun. I mean, it is like a gift. It is like when I think of your booths, that you would have, I mean, like, I don't even know how to describe, I can't even do them justice. Like you'd show up and it was like walking into like, I don't know, like a 50s movie set of, like a crazy lounge room. I mean, didn't one year you guys had big paper leaves everywhere? Yeah, you did a jungle room once, and it's just,
we did a slice of cake one year.
Oh, that was so good. I mean, like, just so brilliant. And like, it was a really fresh approach at trade show. So I guess I shouldn't be so surprised that the book is a similar take on it. I'm curious though, like, so really the themes and the pages, they were just done in collaboration with your editor, and you guys would just research it?
So no, actually they were really good about, so when we were approached by our editor, Rachel,
to do a pitch.
And so it was interesting because we called this the dream project we never knew we wanted, because we always wanted to do a children's book, but I didn't think we were going to get the opportunity to do it in this lifetime. I was like, maybe my next lifetime. There's just the area, like that particular industry has so many great things going on with it. And then so when she approached us, she's like, okay, they're very open. So they're like, we want you to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, I think we should have asked more questions, but we had no idea. So our first pitch was actually quite different. It was like very quirky.
We had haikus in there.
Like they were just, we just wanted to put everything we liked and like stuff it into a book about sisters. But then I think then when we got then we got feedback, and so it's definitely collaborative, because like she starts to shape. She goes, okay, but what about this? So she asked some key questions like, what is a sister? And so you can see that became one of the main themes. And I think she also suggested a couple of books that were on their roster, and so we studied like the way they were set up,
formatting,
kind of built our own themes.
Right.
To see that way, it started to kind of shape out like what content was going to be in there. And so there's this thing we call a book map, where you kind of start to, first there's a book outline, and there's like all these things that you think you want to put, and then you start organizing it. Then you start to map it out to kind of see how many of like each, for instance, about like if you have a question, what is a sister? You have a couple different points you want to do. So it's
right. Yeah, which is how we do a magazine.
There was like,
I mean, yeah, except we have to put in ads.
Yeah, there was different combinations of how we came about. So there were like, we would gather up a bunch of like sets of sisters that we felt like we wanted to highlight our feature. And then in looking at it, then we would look at, these these sets of sisters are
this is what's the commonality between these sisters. And so it's interesting because I don't know that there's an easy way to answer the question, because all this stuff kind of all happened at the same time, and not all in the same way either. And the development of the book, it was interesting because we felt like, even though like we were saying that we would think, okay, this section is set, then we would find something else, and then it would like we would go back and change
it. Or sometimes we would have to for whatever reason, we would have to swap out a set of sisters, and then we would actually go and look again to try to find something that fit better in that space. So
that was comparable.
It was all sorts of different methods of kind of putting the book together.
And it's interesting because now we look at a book and we go, oh my gosh, why is it only $12? Because you've got so many people work, like
it's a lot.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a labor of love.
It's crazy. I mean, I used to work at HarperCollins in their illustrated book division many, many years ago, but they would, envision a book, and then you, figure out how many pages and what kind of cover and what kind of paper, and, and then how much can we charge for it, and the ROI, and, all that. It is like this crazy balancing act that has to go into it that most people who look at a book never,
no idea.
You never experience. And this is like a long book. How many pages is this thing?
It's 112.
Yeah.
That's a long book. And what is, I should know this. I apologize. I am on the gallery page. What's the trim size?
Like, I think it's 5.5 by 7.5 because
that's cute.
Our graphic designer wisely decided to give us a little more room. So this is Rachel, our editor, surprised us. We were like, there's a package coming, and we didn't know what it was because she didn't tell us it was being sent. And it was much earlier than we had anticipated based on the calendar that
the marketing team.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, maybe it's the book, but we're not sure. And then it arrived, and we're like, holy moly.
It's
5.5 by 7.5. Is that right?
5.5 by 7.5. So that's a nice size, and it's it's a little bit of weight in your hands. I feel like people don't look at what the sizes of things, and with cards, with stationery, nearly enough. Like, I feel like the size, like, it can make or break it.
It's really interesting because I told Doris, like, sometimes when we're talking, everything that I've been involved in design has always been on a limited space. So swimwear, bikinis, like prints, and then cards. And so we went from, when we first started our line, we were doing 4-bar size. So they're really small and narrow.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember those.
So the year we went to NSS, we switched them over to A2 because I happened to take this class at Art Center at night. And it wasn't even supposed to be like, let's talk about our business, but that was just ended up going in the conversations. And they were saying that, you'd want it to stand out on the shelves. And so we ended up we were going back and forth because, the 4-bar is really cute. And we were so used to having everything on the 4-bar. But looking back, there's no way we should have definitely switched to A2. I don't even know, because that's how much we were not in like the huge part of the industry, because the standard size, for sure, you should consider doing A2 or bigger, even if you have a subset collection of a smaller set of cards.
Sure. Because they're not going to be able to merchandise. They're not going to be able to merchandise or in any meaningful way. Yeah. Right. No, I get it. But that's the kind of thing a newbie wouldn't know.
No.
But the idea of being able to fit, to say a lot in a limited space, like, that's a real skill. I mean, with writers, look, when someone sends me an article, it's easy to write a 5,000 word article. It's far harder to say the same thing in 500 words and make everyone meaningful. And I feel like it's the same way with good design. It's like you should be able to get a lot of ideas into, a small space.
But I feel like everything that you want to do well is hard. I no longer think anything is easy.
Nothing is ever, if I've learned anything over this past year, it's like nothing is as simple as you think it is. So
100%.
I don't know how you guys did it you have a little girl. I was just like, we can barely handle ourselves and our puppy. I was like, thank goodness I never got knocked up. Because then we would be I was like, me and Doris conversation, can you imagine if we a single parent? Obviously have Doris as a support system, but it's a lot. And
it's hard. It was hard having a teenager. Like, I'm not going to lie, especially an only child who has who has no other sibling to bounce their energy off of, but at the same time, like I have friends with kids in diapers or kids who were like at the age where they really needed to be socializing, like in, in nursery school, like they have to learn how to like not kill each other at a certain age. Otherwise it like never, like there's just a little window.
Yeah.
So, and like those, I felt, it was hard for a lot of people, but when there's another like living, breathing person, like it's her last day of school, and after record this, I'm going to take her out to Starbucks.
How exciting!
I know, and like
props to the parents. And I was like, Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever it is, like whoever is special to you, that's a caretaker. Say thank you, because my gosh, the teachers, like we're not even living it, and I'm like, just by watching our friends, I'm like, it is a monumental thing to raise a good human being. Okay, I mean, with the vaccine, there's so many things to be grateful for in 2021, but for us as a small business, there's been a couple of moments where I'm like, please don't let 2021 be like, let me outdo 2020.
I know, hold my beer. So it was cool looking in the book, because what I really liked is that, I'm used to seeing, your drawings and your work on greeting cards and with a lot of puns. And, but I never really got to see, like a lot of your takes on pop culture. And I think the part of the book that just made me laugh so hard, you have one page, it's towards the end, it's on screen sisters. And you have like you Cardi B and Hennessy from Love and Hip Hop New York. You have Eva Magda and Zaza Gabor. But then you have Lisa and Louise Burns from The Shining twins. And you depicted them with their arms around each other in front of a red screen.
Well, when we heard we were going to get to do a gift book on sisters, I was like, I really... and they're like at the point where we realized, we were going to start featuring sets of sisters. I was like, I really want to work in the Shining sisters somehow because they're so iconic. And it was a movie that we were probably not supposed to watch as kids, but our uncle let us watch it. And it was just like that image of the blood coming out of the elevators in slow motion. And the little girls being juxtaposed against it. Yes. Was seared into my brain.
Yeah, no, me too. I remember when it came out, and I did not see it, but I saw the preview, and the preview, like they were in it. They were juxtaposed in it.
Yeah,
and along with the elevator. Yes, along with the elevator with all the blood coming out.
Yes.
And I must have been, I don't know what age, I might have been 9 or 10.
Like much too young to be
It scared me so bad. I don't even think I watched it till I went to college. But it's just so funny that you included them. So of course, my next question is, you've all these great drawings of like all these celebrity people. Like, are you going to be able to use any of them on stationery? Do you even want to put any in your card range or in your stationery line?
So we can, not necessarily.
So I think the idea is, because we ran it by our editor too, just to like know what's like all the illustrations are ours. But I think the idea would be that we would have to rework it, and it couldn't look like what it looks like in the book. And as much as it was fun to draw, it was fun and super hard. I think I've not drawn so many people.
Well, we have the women's series. The women's series that we did, and I think that's essentially how our editor.
Well, we never asked her.
No,
I think that was one of the things that she saw.
Yeah, that probably because you have that RGB card. You have So, and that was a really cute range. I didn't even think of that.
Yes, I feel like that's where she had, and for us that particular set, we're adding to it, but it's slow because we want to try to incorporate what those women figures are about in a pun. So then that's the part that slows it down.
Look, there's nothing wrong with being thoughtful and taking your time and letting the right sort of presentation come to you. As opposed to rushing it out, you guys have fodder for like 500 ranges in this book if you really carefully apply them. So take your time. Don't
I mean, we are taking pieces of,
just like little details will be showing up in the line, but it won't. But obviously, we want them to see it first in the book. So we're like,
right.
I was thinking at the time, like, oh, we should definitely put in find a way to put in other things other than just sets of sisters, right? Like sets of sisters are awesome, but then like the book should be well-rounded. And so then how do you work in other things? And that's kind of how that came about.
I mean, it's definitely made me reconsider the concept of what is a sister. And I think for a gift book, that's a lot. I mean, I think of gift books as, there was a time when I even worked at HarperCollins in their gift book division where, gift books and coffee table books were this ubiquitous thing in our culture. And like, I do love them. I mean, remember that Seinfeld episode where Kramer does you guys might not watch Seinfeld, but he does a coffee table book that turns into a coffee table. Like it had little legs.
But now I need to look that up.
But I mean, like, they got so ubiquitous, they didn't even have to be on anything anymore. Like, it was like, let's just do a book of gardens. And we don't really have to worry about the copy. It'll just be some pretty gardens. And people will buy it. And they did. And so it's nice to see, like, something in this form where it's like, wow, you're really thinking about this.
Right. I mean, I think that's the beauty of a coffee book. It can be super dense and thought out and packed, or it could be just a collection. I mean, we love collections of things, right? And so we kind of wanted it to be both because there's like collections of sisters in there, but also things you can learn. And then, but yeah, I think my favorite spreads were related not only to how they came out, but also what I was able to. So these little textures, I didn't use them everywhere, but like, and you see on this, it was, I don't have a lot of fancy, I have a mix of art stuff that I don't get to use very often. So this is from, was it Flying Tiger? When we go to NSS, we always stop by Flying Tiger. So they had this watercolor set, which was probably like $8. And I was like, oh, let me make some more interesting textures so not everything is super flat. And then I scanned it, and I literally, I mean, I've not gone, like, I've taken art classes, but I've not gone to art school. So I definitely, like, imposter syndrome is something that everyone, I feel like, has, but it totally rears its head. So I was scanning these, and then I was like, oh my gosh, there are like, and I have these cheap paintbrushes. And so I noticed there was like a little paintbrush, that it was like shedding into the texture. So I was like, oh no. After I noticed it, I was like, oh no, I have to go in and Photoshop it out. And at the point I had put it into the layout already. And so I think that these spreads are my favorite because there was a lot of work that went into them.
Yeah. I mean, Alice touched on it earlier, but our cards are usually just like one main image, not so much like background. I mean, this was a project that really stretched her artistic ability. So I'm like super proud of what she was able to achieve with it.
And we survived.
And
we survived.
And Alice, you shouldn't, I mean, your work is so charming, and I don't think you should give yourself a hard time about not going to art school. If anything, I mean, my mom went to art school, and she's always says they unteach a lot of it is on, obviously you learn a lot of technical stuff and techniques, but a lot of times, a lot of it is them like trying to teach you in their way, or it can be, sometimes, and it's better to have this sort of very direct approach that, is very organic and authentic to you. Just figure it out. It looks good.
Thank you. They try.
And so, I mean, my last question to you, I asked if running a company made you guys, see each other differently. How about putting together a book that you always wanted to do, but didn't know you really wanted to do until you did it?
I mean, these last 2 years have been so ridiculously challenging for the both of us. I mean, we also had the pandemic, so we were dealing with like not having our, normal team helping us.
We had just started to build out a small team.
Yeah.
But we work out of, you can see our home office in the back. But like,
I love it.
We just started to have like a small team. And then all of a sudden we couldn't have people come in and come over anymore.
But yeah, so I mean, it was just like such a challenging year, but I honestly came away with like, not that I don't already have like a huge amount of respect for Alice, but her tenacity. I mean, she was like getting little to no sleep for like probably a good 6 months or so. And I mean, sometimes like so what we underestimated when we were doing the book is that we came up with the content, but in terms of like actually fleshing out the concepts, sometimes she'd have to sit there and figure it out as she was sketching. And she would like try to ask me, but sometimes my brain was so dead. And so
because you're running a small business.
Sure.
She's kind of like on the hook because she's got to get those sketches out. And
like you're on deadline.
Yeah.
You're juggling a million balls and working a day job. You're living together.
Right.
In pandemic.
Yeah.
With a small dog.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We did training with Sparky last year, which is good because we want his life to be the best it can be, but it's just layers and layers.
Because we had a crate train, and so he wasn't like he would like cry all night
to like sleep training your baby. But like he's not a baby anymore, right?
I know.
Anyone out there getting a puppy, crate train them from the beginning.
Yeah.
From the beginning. Yeah. Don't do it a year
crate train, but then we
didn't know what crate train
and you didn't do it. In the middle of a pandemic with a book and deadlines. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
it was intense. Yeah.
I'm the only crazy person I know who like will be working on a project like night and day, and like I assume everyone around me understands all the details.
Sarah, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm generally up. My schedule, not purposely, but it just has shifted, and now I'm kind of like everyone's always worried about the amount of sleep I get. I do get sleep. It's just in a different slot than everyone else, because it's quieter at night.
And sometimes we would have our meetings with the editor, and like
I would have taken like a 20-minute nap
or she didn't sleep at all yet. So it was
hysterical. I've always thought I get more done at night because nobody else is awake. I can take all the bandwidth.
It's quiet.
But no one's bothering me. I know.
There's no errands to run. There's daytime things you have to do. And there's so much. I mean, when you're living at home, I always work at home, but like all the chores are in front of you. Like there's like laundry, there's like all these things to do. So,
but yeah, so New found more respect for Alice in terms of her problem solving skills when she has no sleep.
Well, I appreciate that my brain works with me when it's like half asleep.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, you guys got through it and you lived together and you did. I mean, there's a lot of success there and it hasn't even been released.
No, it hasn't.
It's very surreal. I'm pretty sure we'll feel very like, whoa, is this for real? Is this real life? Because it still feels like we have the book in our hand, and it was cute because our parents are in Taiwan, and my mom's like, are you going to send it to us? And then I was like, but it's our only copy, so we need it for photo stuff.
I know. And I have to say, I can imagine it's very cool to get the physical copy because when we switched from physical proofs of pages, printed out pages to proof prior to putting the magazine to press. We probably made that switch like maybe a decade ago. And it was very difficult. But after a while, I realized that I was just looking at the publication as this abstract thing on my screen, and I didn't really appreciate it until I got the physical copy in the mail. Like it didn't seem real. I didn't look at the pages the same way. I don't know.
We're very tactile. We understand.
Yeah.
And because of the pandemic, we
missed out on, so normally you would have, I think, gotten an advance copy where it's like just the paperback. So they print usually. And so we didn't even get to proof our book physically.
Right.
Color designer, color proof. I think she spotted certain spots that maybe we should check. So we literally got these sheets that were printed out, but it wasn't like the full book. It was just select things. And so I was like, there was one page where we never even anticipated, like there's these girls having pizza on a bedspread. And that bedspread was supposed to be lavender, but it's gray for some reason. I don't know why. So I was like telling Doris, I hope the book does really well, because then we could fix it if they run it again.
In the next edition. Oh,
I'm like,
I know.
I would buy a gray cover.
But I'm very detail oriented. So to me, I'm like, I'll just flip faster through that spread.
I know. Again, like that's one element of the book.
I mean, for the fact that we didn't like proof the whole thing. It's amazing. Yeah.
I remember once a book that I read as a teenager that really inspired me. It's such a weird book. It's From A to B and Back Again by Andy Warhol. And it was really, if you can get a copy, it's way out of print, but it's funny. And but it also has like a lot of wisdom in it. And one of the things he said was he liked having assistants. He called them all his bees. That's why it's From A to B and Back Again, because he's talking with his assistants. And he liked sort of like delegating things to them and not really looking at it again. He would be like, I'll tell him to do something a certain way. Like I'll tell him, oh, go print this. And it really doesn't come back at all like how I thought it was. But I'm like, you know what? I like it. Let's do it. Like there's something very, freeing about letting it go. I mean, of course, we were, married to our ideas and, they're a part of us. But sometimes it's, it works. It looks good.
It's just
we're happy.
It's good.
Yeah. You should both be really proud of yourselves. And I'm just so excited to see it come out. So
thank you. Oh, I did want to say that.
Yes, say it.
Your question about like, do we see each other differently after the book? And I read your question. I was like, well, you know what? Doris is already like one of my favorite peoples in the world, if not like the favorite. And so I was like, I don't know, I could see you differently, because I always think if I had a daughter, I'd want her to be like Doris. And so I was like, I feel like that's the biggest compliment. Doris is like, you didn't learn anything good about me during this project. I was like,
what's wrong with you?
I was like, well, I mean, you're already up there. I mean, how much higher can we go?
You can go higher.
I can be more important. Trust me. Like I love it, and you know what? And your daughter might very much be like her. I remember when I had my daughter, when she was a baby, there was a certain angle she would sit at, and she always looked like my sister to me when she was little. And in many ways, she is a little bit more like my sister than me. Like you always think your kid's going to be just like you, but a lot of what they do is in reaction to you.
That's what we heard.
So so I think they're like your sibling. And oddly enough, like one of my sister's kids is a lot like me. And like,
so it evens out.
Yeah, it evens out, but in like weird ways. Like neither of us like blow drying our hair. We think it's boring, just like weird.
It is boring.
It is boring.
Put something on to do or like do something else it takes so. Oh my gosh!
So
we talk about like the fact that we haven't been able to cut our hair. I don't even know what to do with it. And like we've been in these Zoom meetings, I'm like, oh, it's so big. There's so much of it. Like
you got to sell it. You got to sell it. That's gonna make.
I told her to donate it.
You guys should. You guys should.
Yeah.
You guys should. If the people in because like a lot of kids in my town, they'll donate their hair to like, they'll grow it long and they'll donate it for cancer. I can find it, and like someone would be very happy with your hair. That's all I'm gonna say.
This is the longest I think it's been. It's not all the same.
So beautiful. Just everyone imagine the most beautiful hair, and that's what I'm looking at. And it's like endless. I think it might go to her waist. It might be like 3 feet of hair.
It's probably the longest it's ever been. It's very warm. If you can't, I'm like fanning myself.
As she fans herself.
It's typically up, but it's like long past the point of how I usually just throw it up in a very loose bun because our hair doesn't stay in that really chic top bun everybody does.
Yes. I understand. Mine doesn't either.
Yeah, I'm always like, I want to look like an artist.
We have like a lot of baby hair too.
And it just, I think it's too slidey, so it doesn't stay on. It like starts at the top and then it starts to make its way down.
I know. You're lucky you haven't been on a lot of Zoom calls because that would be all you could look at is like, my hair is collapsing.
We were on a panel and I swear I was so fidgety and Doris is like, what were you looking at? I was like, I don't know, it looked like my hair was swallowing me. It's distracting.
I was getting eaten by my hair.
It was like kind of a serious topic and I was like so distracted because we're so not used to seeing ourselves.
So distracting. And I learned something that on everybody's Zoom, you're in the top center. Like everybody is in the top center row of their own Zoom. Like we're all starring in our own movie.
So it's like right there. Presenting you.
You're the star of every Zoom. We're all the stars of our
your own Zoom.
Fabulous.
Oh, God. So anyway, oh my gosh, it was such a treat.
So good to see you.
It was so fun catching up.
I know if it was a normal time, you guys might be doing some publicity for the book, for the title.
Yeah. Everyone's been asking us like, oh, are you going to do a release party? And we're like, we're not quite sure we're ready there.
We need a break.
We'll do a dance party in our room.
Well, because I think we're trying to, it's been a long time since we had a break, but we're thinking we're just going to like get ourselves to the release of the book. And then we're going to,
take a week break.
You do it. You need it. If you've been like not sleeping and you need it. And it's just a great way to finish a project. I mean, I always love that feeling when I put like a really tough issue to bed and I have like a couple days where I could just like forget about it and do nothing and like just watch birds in my backyard and just not think about think about anything.
Right. Because we finished the book in February, but then like during this time, I think Alice especially is feeling pressure to like do the new collection and like kind of like launch it along with our, promoting our book.
Sure.
So after the book, we literally have had no break.
It's okay. I've been moving at a snail's pace stuck in molasses because it's like you just really want to do things, but like your brain is just pooped. You know?
Yeah,
it's been a really intense year. So
I'm the same way.
We're going to get what we can done, and then it's just going to unfold the way it unfolds.
I mean, you really have to, to take what Stacy at Gingerbread says, just give yourself margin, like my husband was telling me that, like, you don't have to like get your newsletter out at 3:00. If it gets out at 3:30, like no, people are not going to mass unsubscribe.
Exactly. That's what I tell Alice. I'm like, our deadlines are our own deadlines. No one else is setting them but us. So if we need to push something back, we can. So
absolutely. And it can be hard because we're in a business that is just very novelty driven, and it's always about like what's the next thing you're doing, and you see what everyone else is doing, and of course that makes you want to. Oh, I want to do this. So it's tough. And, again, if there's anything I've learned in the last year, it's that the brain is a crazy thing. And sometimes, if you just push it for so long, like it just needs to like sit there like a sponge for a while.
Ironically, before the pandemic, I had asked my friend, theoretically, why don't humans hibernate, right? All your favorite foods, take a really long nap, and then appear like in time to eat more good things, but this was not, the pandemic was not a hibernation.
It was not. I mean, people thought it was. At the beginning, everyone was like, oh, you have to learn a new language and, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, it's not. It was definitely not a sprint. It was a marathon.
It was. It truly was. But if you guys are taking a break ever and you're on our side, on the LA.
I want to tour. I want to tour, and I want to meet Sparky.
Oh,
yes.
He's at daycare right now.
Oh yeah, we left him to play with his. We were like, he needs socialization because like you avoid people during the pandemic when you're on walks unless like you know them, because otherwise the dogs get tangled and there's no way to maintain 6 feet away.
Yeah, no, my dog was very confused early in the pandemic when we would let her say hi to anybody. Like she's like, what? Like, what are you doing?
So then when he started saying hi to dogs again, it was like a little too like.
He was like very rusty. Yeah. And so we're like, oh man, we need to like enroll him in something where he has social time with dogs and it's supervised because, you know, dog park time supervised. So, you know, it's complicated. I don't understand how everyone handles everything.
I know. No, it's a lot. You know, of course, people just throw their hands up at some point. like they're just going to be what they are. Yeah. Anyway, but he was such
go
a
have fun with go have fun with your daughter.
Yes, tell her congrats.
Yes.
She finished 9th grade. I'm taking her to Starbucks. And she waited patiently while I recorded. So I'm getting her a venti.
Venti. That's so cute. Life is simple back then.
It is simpler.
Yes, that's true. Well, anyway, have fun.
Thank you guys so much again.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Alice and Doris, for coming by the Paper Fold. And thank you so much for listening. As always, email me at sarah@thepapernerd.com with anything I can do for you. And if you are liking what you are hearing, please subscribe and leave me a good rating and review. I can't tell you how much that helps. Thank you so much, Paper Peeps. Please stay wow.